Welcome to Who Lives Around the Corner, a new visual podcast with interviews of neighbors with a variety of unique interests and talents. And now the host of Who Lives Around the Corner, Mr. Dan Regan.
Hi, this is Dan Regan, your 91-year-old podcaster. Today we have a very interesting guest. I'd like to welcome Leslie Regan. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Good. You're a real Renaissance young lady. Tell us about where you were born.
I was born in New York City in 1999, but didn't have much of a chance to live in the city back then. I grew up in Westchester, New York.
And your mother is an attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and your father is in the housing business. Wow, and you got a sister what does she do?
She is working on cancer research at Sloan Kettering. She has finishing up her PhD in molecular biology, so she's been a big inspiration to me as well.
Yeah, that's terrific. The two of you have decided to go into the more academical world more than the business world on the other side. Tell us about your education.
So I went to Lehigh University for undergrad. I actually came in to Lehigh thinking that I was going to study biology and work to go to vet school. Growing up, I've always loved animals. I think we always thought of our household as a zoo, a lot of pets supplied by my grandpa here. But I always had a love for animals, so I started studying that, but I soon realized that kind of that course of study wasn't for me. I wasn't feeling passionate about biology and chemistry and all those courses, and so I started to actually take some classes in psychology.
Wow.
And that's where my passion for the field of psychology started, and I was like, actually for the first time I'm sitting in a class and I don't even want to leave it. This is so interesting to me. So I started to seek out some other opportunities, outside of school, volunteer opportunities, and internships in the psychology field, sitting in on a lot of group therapies with both adults, children, working with people with special needs, all of that, to gain a lot of experience of what it would be like to be in that field. And I just absolutely saw my passion growing, and that's how I decided I wanted to go on to graduate school after Lehigh. And I ended up at a school outside the city in New Jersey called Kane, where I was very lucky to carry on my graduate studies.
They have an excellent psychology department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Yeah, the program, it's a great program. It's called a PsyD. It's very similar to a PhD, but basically it's much more focused on clinical experiences rather than research. I do engage in some research studies, which maybe we'll talk about in a minute, but a lot of it is getting out and doing what we call externships, which is alongside the classes that we're taking, you go into different clinical spaces like schools and practices and community clinics, and you work with people providing therapy for them while you're in training. And so all this starts with the master's, which you kind of get 2 years into the program, and then I'm just wrapping up the part which will be the doctorate degree. And I was very lucky to be able to teach undergraduate intro to psychology courses at Kane, which allowed me to get that scholarship.
Tell us about this new anxiety program. I think about 80 to 90% of the public have some form of anxiety problems.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about the one that you singled out.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, I think everyone has some sort of anxiety on a daily basis. It plagues people differently and to various levels of severity, but I think that is something we all have in common as humans, just being anxious about things. it's always been, something that I've wanted to study more and see how I could, get involved in treating anxiety in the field. So on my research team at Kane, I started creating a protocol, which is actually for my main dissertation project, which I'm wrapping up now, but it's a protocol that we've adopted from some other very, brilliant psychologists before me, Dr. Dennis Tersch and Dr. Karen Kleiman. Inspired a lot of the work that I'm doing. But basically, it's a protocol that's taking aspects of acceptance and commitment therapy and compassion-focused therapy and incorporating that with a more traditional protocol called exposure and response therapy, all to treat people with OCD. And that acceptance and commitment therapy really focuses on identifying what you value in your life, trying to think of, like, what are the things day to day that are so meaningful to me that I can engage in that while allowing any discomfort from anxiety that I have to remain present. So we're not pushing away the anxiety, we're not wishing it away, we're not engaging in things that gets rid of it, because that actually makes the anxiety more powerful and it has more of a hold on you when you're really trying to do whatever you can to get rid of it. So we're talking about, what do you value day to day? How can you be more flexible in your life so that you can be still engaging in things that are special to you and sort of fill up your cup, as a way to think about it, even while anxiety may be present. We say something like, anxiety can come along for the ride, and I'm going to be spending meaningful time with people that are important to me in my life. I'm going to exercise, I'm going to engage in art, whatever it is that makes someone feel like their life is worth living. So we help them identify that as part of that therapy. And with compassion-focused therapy, it's all about decreasing self-criticism, shame, and guilt that is so common in people with OCD and anxiety, and trying to increase self-compassion on a daily basis. And we do a lot of reframing work in that, in identifying, what am I putting myself down about today? Like, what is that voice in the back of my head that's telling me I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't be doing this, or I'm a burden, or whatever it is, and trying to promote more self-kindness on a daily basis to also help you navigate that anxiety.
I see you rising in the academic world, but let's turn the page and see some of your other interests. I understand that you have a camera and you put it to good use. Tell us about it.
Well, I got to give you a lot of credit, to be honest, for sort of sparking my interest in photography. From a young age, my grandpa would take us out on all these adventures with a camera, and he was able to model, how to get some cool shots and how to, take interesting photos of things that maybe felt like a risk even. Like, he really put a lot of...
But you're doing it commercially now.
Well, it's grown from that, yeah.
What are you doing there?
So I started a little bit of like a side photography business when I was in college. Do a lot of family shoots, small events, like bridal showers, small bar bat mitzvahs. I think I've done like one smaller scale wedding as well. But yeah, so I do a lot of just those types of events, like in my spare time, like on weekends, or maybe an evening here and there.
Tell me about your love of animals, how you've converted that into a commercial enterprise.
Oh, with the dog sitting as well? You can tell I'm a very busy person.
Yeah, I see that.
So, and I also got involved in dog sitting and dog walking. Living in the city, there's just like dogs everywhere, of course, even in my own building. So it's sort of a combination of like, meeting people and saying, oh, you have like the cutest dog here, do you need any dog sitting? And then also I use an app called Rover, which sort of connects you with people in your neighborhood that could need dog sitting and petting. Dog sitting. And I think what's been helpful is that I work remote some of the times when I'm doing my therapy, and I'm able to have dogs there while I'm working remote, and also can have them
You
like in
can
the evening.
put some of the dogs on the couch and find out their problems.
Exactly, yeah, they all have problems too. I even think sometimes, like, I have a lot of patients that love dogs, and we'll be sitting there virtually, and I can tell they're having a tough moment, and we'll be working through that, and I'll be like, what could also help here, and I'll hold up the dog, and they'll get a kick out of it.
How do you have time to sleep with your busy program?
I still think that's a priority. I think it's just all about balance, to be honest. It's not that I think, you shouldn't sleep. I think everyone needs a certain amount of sleep a night. So I just, I have some time management skills that I put to use. And I just have to set boundaries as well. Like, I think that's what I really love about the work I'm doing.
Tell me about your generation is so busy doing so many different activities and striving in business and academic world.
Mm-hmm.
How do they have time for family, children, and careers at the same time?
Well, I think it really ties into what I was saying about balance and just setting priorities. It's something that I talk a lot with my patients, going back to that, values-oriented work, is that you really need to think about what is it on a daily basis that you want to prioritize in terms of your values. Like, you can be doing a million things, but if you're not getting anything out of it, if it's not feeling meaningful to you, then why do it? I think everything that I do and that everything that people with a busy schedule are doing should be something that they really value and that they think is going to, be a priority to them in that way. And I think that's what makes it worth it. You have to sometimes even balance what you value of like, okay, this day I'm going to prioritize X, Y, and Z value. It's going to be the work I'm doing with patients. And then I'm going to make sure I see some friends after work because I think a social life is so important as well. And, maybe that day, no dogs. And then the next day it's like lots of dogs and, still some work. And
you're a juggler of
exactly.
the generation.
But I think as long as it's, going back to what you value and what you think is important, that makes sense. I wouldn't be doing a lot of things that I didn't care about.
Let's flip back to psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you like to see psychology in the modern generation go forward? How do you see that? With all the modern things going on with AI
mm-hmm.
and with the computer and things like that, how do you see yourself 5 or 10 years progressed ahead in the psychology field?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up AI because I think that there's pros and cons of anything related to AI in the psychology field. Some of it, to be honest, makes me a little bit nervous if it's misused. Like, some people might try to create themselves an AI therapist instead of seeing someone like myself or the people on my wonderful team. You can search very easily online, like, how do I make myself feel better about this? And it feels like a short-term fix in the moment, but that's not going to last long-term for someone who needs deeper psychological assistance. It's interesting. I have a lot of patients working with people with OCD who seek a lot of reassurance, and that usually will come from the people in their life. For example, if someone is very concerned about getting contaminated to like a germ when they're out and about, some sort of illness, they might ask someone that they love in their family, like, oh, do you think I'm going to get sick? Do you think we should avoid X, Y, and Z because of this? And it becomes this cycle of them asking for reassurance, getting temporary relief, which tells their anxiety mind they should continue to ask for reassurance, but that damages their relationships if you're always asking, the same questions to someone. So I've noticed a lot of my patients trying to turn to AI to get that reassurance, which I'm trying to steer them away from as well. And it's interesting, there's been some new ways, and I think this is something that's going to be developing and continuing to develop in the future, where you can sort of reprogram AI to help you stay skillful in those moments when you're seeking reassurance. So, for example, you can write to AI, I am a person with OCD. If I ask for reassurance about X, Y, and Z, or if I ask, for help in this specific thing, I want you to write back that I'm not giving you this reassurance and that you can turn to these skills that you've talked about in therapy. You can even name the skills to get reminded. So that part I like, that they have this like essentially a robot that can remind them when their therapist isn't there what to do, but we can't have AI replacing the therapist.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be ways where the internet hopefully will be on our side and continue to develop in more of a healthy way. But I'm a little bit nervous about people misunderstanding or thinking like, oh, this is a cheaper or easier way to get therapy.
How do you feel Leslie Regan developing a national program through Zoom or the computer so you could attract a more national or international audience? Do you see that in your future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be great. The kind of steps to get there is getting licensed in first getting licensed at all, because I'm not yet licensed. I'm soon to be licensed. But just getting licensed in as many states as possible. I think one thing that I'm really passionate about in the field is increasing accessibility to exposure-based treatment and the type of treatment that I'm doing at the practice in New York City. I think a lot of people need those services. That's why I was so excited to bring the protocol that we were discussing earlier to the community clinic at Kane. It's a free clinic where people could get services there cost-free because it's a training clinic. And so I want, to grow more of those opportunities, and that, it's like what you said, getting licensed and exploring that virtually and all over. That's one way to do it, I think.
I want to thank you for this podcast. You're a true joy and a Renaissance girl of the generation between 20 and 40 women. And it'll be very interesting to see in the future where Leslie Regan and the women of that generation will end up. Thank you for this podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
If you have or know of a neighbor with a unique interest or talent, please get in touch with us with their contact information, and please include their unique interest or talent. Email us at wholivesaroundthecorner@gmail.com. Goodbye for now. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Who Lives Around the Corner, a new visual podcast of neighbors with a variety of unique interests and talents, with host Dan Regan. Brought to you by Rockland World Radio and Modern Metro Studios.